Hi there everybody, Dave here from Hey You Guys. We are going to be talking about War for the Planet of the Apes, which is the third in the trilogy of movies. Stefan and Scott have both seen it. They are fortunately both with me. Hello chaps.
Hello.
Hello.
We haven't got an ident for Scott, but here's a nice little ident for Stefan when he went to the Planet of the Apes junket, where he chose his side. I'm choosing Stefan. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm choosing Caesar.
Look, one person that's really angry, one that's terrified. If I had to choose a side, I think I'd know who I'd go for.
Yeah, you should have done like this really happy face.
I know, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, like, hello, with a thumb
Yeah,
up.
a bit more, I should have gone more Corbyn with it, really, shouldn't I?
Yeah, oh yeah, you missed it. You should have had a good t-shirt on. Anyway, today we will be talking about War for the Planet of the Apes. Stefan, do you want to take it away? What's it all about? And yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, yeah, so it's the conflict between the mankind and apes continues on. So Caesar, who's played by Andy Serkis, he just wants to come to an agreement of peace. He's fed up of the fighting, he's fed up of the killing. But while the apes continue to be attacked, he feels his responsibility to his species to defend himself and his family. So he sends a message to the colonel, played by Woody Harrelson, to say that if the humans leave the apes alone, we can end this war. But he's dealing with an absolute narcissist who is completely unhinged and a bit mad, to be completely honest, which Woody Harrelson plays so well. And so the colonel is not giving up anytime soon, and Caesar does not back down. So what entails is quite a huge, brutal, quite savage conflict between man and ape, and it gets pretty compelling. It's quite a war movie, this one. I'm a big fan.
So yeah, we love the Planet of the Apes trilogy that have been coming out in recent years. Scott, does this movie live up to the previous two?
It does, very much so. Very much so. Talk about closing out a trilogy of movies. Pretty impressive. You know, it's directed by Matt Reeves again, who did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I stand corrected. I forgot the fact he didn't do the first film, did he? He did the second one, and
he's one of the co-writer it with Mark Bombach. Yeah, it was Rupert Wyatt did the first one.
That's right.
With James Franco and John Lithgow. But it does. I mean, it's fantastic. Technically speaking, I mean, it's superb yet again. But the story itself is very, very engaging and engrossing. You know, even though it's a war movie on the surface, it says a lot about humanity as well, and the struggles of, you know, humanity with war and everything else. So, but you know, across the board, it's absolutely stellar. Visually stunning, and Andy Serkis again proves why he's not just a great motion capture actor, but an actor. Full stop. Absolutely superb. As is Woody Harrelson as the Colonel as well.
Because motion captures, I mean, it's still a very new technology, really, but motion capture is basically the technology where actors will go into a green or blue screen and have dots applied to them, and then their performances are completely captured. I say they go onto a screen, that's what they used to have to do. Now they don't need to do that anymore because the technology is so advanced, they're able to do it all on set. So, yeah, Andy Serkis, you may not even necessarily know, but he plays Caesar, who's the main ape in the movie, who we've seen in all three films. And, yeah, Stefan, obviously you gave a 4-star review. So why is this movie so good? You mentioned it's an epic war movie, but you also got to speak to the director, and he sort of elaborated on how this movie sort of tells an awful lot about humanity and how actually the apes can be more human than sometimes the humans are in this film.
Yeah. That's for me what makes this film so good is the way it studies like the notion of war, and it just blurs the line so much between good and evil. I mean, we meet traitorous apes who start siding with mankind, and we meet compassionate humans who side with the apes. There's no real, I mean, there are good guys and there are villains in this movie, but generally speaking, we take a real back step, and I think Matt Reeves does an incredible job of just kind of letting this unfold without choosing a side. And war movies are so often, from the audience perspective, you're so invested in one side, whereas this is the waters are very muddy in that regard. And I love the fact that the way the two cross over, so, you know, we study war from such a primitive sort of way. We take it back to basics, and we really cast our eye over such intrinsic kind of emotions about how we operate as a species. And yeah, like you just said before, I mean, it's some of the apes have a much more wise view on the war, and some of the humans are much more volatile and much more kind of impulsive. And I think the way we just cast our eye over just the whole notion of war, I think I called it in my review one of the kind of defining war movies of our time, which sounds like a real quite a bold statement to make, but in just the terms of the way it studies our psyche and our condition in war, which is obviously one of the most kind of pertinent themes of movies from the dawn of time, and forever will be. I think this film film takes a very unique means of studying it and exploring what war is and what it means and the sort of effect it has on people. And for me, that's what made this movie so incredible. It's just so funny that to really get to the kind of the core of what sort of mankind feel in war, we had to kind of do it through apes. But that's almost makes it all the more kind of special, really.
But you also spoke to Matt about how this movie, they watched an awful lot of war movies, didn't they, before making this one, and I think Apocalypse Now was one of those films, and there's an image here of Woody Harrelson. How did you describe him? He's basically demented sort of human who's just like out for blood, I guess, is he? And there's a really interesting photo here that Martin Sheen, and it's that same sort of demented look on his face, and the parallels that they draw from those two films.
Yeah, I remember when I saw it, I thought sat there quite smugly when you feel like you've really seen a big comparison and you want to draw lots of parallels to in your review. And that's sort of half an hour when I went, this is so much like Apocalypse Now. But then I realised that it wasn't exactly subtle, because one of the apes writes Ape Apocalypse Now on the wall at one point. So it's hard. They're very kind of upfront with their kind of influence from that movie, and I think that Woody Harrelson really channels his inner Marlon Brando. He plays that sort of role in this film, and also I think that it's alluded to just almost like in the soundtrack. There's a Jimi Hendrix song that features in this. Now, any Vietnam War movie is so enriched by its kind of rock and roll soundtrack. That's such a staple of that kind of genre of film. So to implement kind of Jimi Hendrix into this film was Matt Reeves just furthermore kind of really stating how big an influence Apocalypse Now was on this film. And I mean, if you're going to be influenced by a movie in the war genre, I mean, you can't go far wrong, really. So, no. But it's very, very affectionate in its influences. It's not imitative at all. It's just you can tell it's very much inspired by. But that, like I said, it can only really be a good thing.
He also talked about films like A Bridge Too Far and The Great Escape as well as being two movies that they sort of all watched before making this movie. Scott, there's a young girl in this photo with Woody Harrelson. Who does she play in the movie?
She plays a character called Nova, who is a mute girl. It's alluded to somewhat that some of the humans are still suffering from the virus that's been obviously spreading around since the first movie, and that some of these humans are becoming mute as a side effect of this disease that's still kind of rampaging through. So there are pockets of humans still around, but they're obviously slowly being wiped out.
Like
so
the Walking Dead style, isn't it? I guess.
Kind of. You don't really see many of the humans outside of the colonel and his troops. And she's one of the characters that the apes meet along the way and kind of take under their wing, because she's got a bit more. Obviously, she can't talk because she was a little girl. They're more compassionate to her, and she sides for them in her own way. But she's a mute throughout. But it's a fantastic performance from a young actress called Amiah Miller. She really does a great job, because she's acting against these guys in their CGI suits and whatnot. Yeah. But she's there for the ride. But she's a fantastic. It's fantastic. Remind me a lot of Newt from Aliens in that sense.
And also Steve Zahn plays Bad Ape in the movie, and there's others like Toby Kebbell. Is Judy Greer? Is she a live action character, or is she?
She's Caesar's wife.
Okay, so there's all of these well-known actors, and many more. If you look on IMDb at just the cast list, who you wouldn't necessarily even know were in the film, but it's just wonderful performances, and their credit should be given, right, for these performances they give, even though you don't necessarily even know that it's them playing the part.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Steve Zahn has been around for a long time. He's a great character actor, and strangely, and when you see him in the movie, you only see kind of the back of him, and I thought, oh, it's obviously Steve Zahn, but when he turns around, I didn't realise actually beforehand that he was an ape, a monkey, and he gives a fantastic performance. And he said when I spoke to him on the carpet for the little fan screen they had, that there's no better teacher than Andy Serkis for all of that stuff. And I think a lot of that uniqueness and a lot of the performances come from him being so amazing and so giving with what he's learned over the years with this, and obviously Gollum and the other stuff that he's done. But they're all fantastic. Even the kind of quote unquote unlisted actors who are just like there for just behind the mask, if you like. They're all fantastic as well. So they all give fantastic performances, as does Andy Serkis.
And Stefan, you gave the movie 4 stars, and Scott, would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
So it sounds like if you are a fan of the previous movies, so we've had Rise of the Planet of the Apes, or Rise of the Planet of the Apes even, and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and now obviously we've got War for the Planet of the Apes. If you're a fan of those, of the previous two, then you're going to love this film. I can't wait to see it. I'm seeing it next week. Our review is live on HeyUGuys now, so check that out, the written review. And yeah, as Scott said, we were lucky enough to be invited along to a fan screening where Andy Steve, Amiah, and Woody Harrelson were all there, and director Matt Reeves as well. And we spoke to all but Woody at the premiere, and just got a bit more info on what it was like to shoot the movie. And it is just it's a magical way they do it. Obviously, Weta, who do all the CG, are getting better and better every time they do a movie. And if there's one thing they're good at, it's definitely Apes. But yeah, we also got to speak to Matt, to Andy, to Steve, all at the junket. Stefan spoke to all of them, and we had some really good chats. And I highly recommend checking out the Matt Reeves interview if you haven't already watched it, just because it is a fascinating look into how they made the movie and the sort of influences that were drawn from it. And he's also doing Batman next, right, Scott?
He is indeed. He hasn't started working just yet, but that is the next thing. That is the next thing for him, and yeah, it's him and Ben Affleck, hopefully.
So Scott, just finally, obviously this is the third movie in this trilogy of Apes movies. Is there potential for more, or do you think this is it for the Apes franchise for the time being, and will they reboot it later down the line?
In Hollywood, there's always room for more, isn't there, if it makes money?
So true.
True. But I think in terms of the trilogy, very similar to, say, the Dark Knight trilogy, which is the most recent kind of trilogy of its kind, if you like, where there wasn't a big expanded universe and all this stuff that some films want to do. I think, testament to the movies themselves, I think that should be the end. They could bring it back. They could do something else. The original Planet of the Apes was 7 films. But I would, in terms of Andy Serkis and Matt Reeve and everybody else, I think this is the end, and I think it should stay that way, because it's quite as a trilogy, it's fantastic.
Yeah, do let us know what you think in the comments when you've seen the movie. Like us on our usual channels, and make sure you check out the interviews when they go live. And we look forward to seeing you next time on The Mouth Off. Take care all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey You Guys!